Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McLemore.
All right, good evening, and welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses from across the country. I am your host, Kimberly McLemore, CEO and founder of the Women's Small Business Initiative, LLC, and award-winning author. And welcome to another night of sharing. With us, we have Elle. Elle is an acoustic pop singer, songwriter who brings warmth and energy through diverse, well-crafted, five-star and guitar-driven melodic songs. His soft, inviting voice will uplift and soothe your spirits, and his witty lyrics will provoke deeper thoughts about the world while sharing optimistic, positive, upbeat messages that will have you carry on with your day with a smile. The result is amazing success worldwide, including rave reviews by over 40 blogs, magazines, DJs, and radio programmers, and chart-topping songs across multiple genres. JL's latest release, the 12-song album Ride the Wave, was arranged, mixed, and produced by Sherman. The album was mastered by Paul Logus. So without further ado, please help me welcome to my platform, Mr. JL. Jay, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm doing good. Besides stumbling through that introduction, I'm like, oh my goodness.
You did amazing. I was listening like, that's me. That's wow.
I know that you just love hearing about yourself. It's like, oh my, did I do all that? Is that really me?
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
Oh, well, I'm excited about having you here on my platform with me tonight, and I can't wait to hear your story, and I'm sure my listeners can't wait to hear about you as well. So before we get started into the interview process, as we always call it, why don't you tell the listeners just a little bit more about who JL really is?
Yes, thank you for asking, because that has been the number one question throughout my life. I just make music, sometimes I don't even know. I mean, I pick up a guitar and music comes out and I'm like, what am I going to do with this stuff, really? I mean, people out there are developing apps, besides the fact that some invented cell phones and computers and super clever people are working out vaccines and really cool stuff. So, yeah, I make music. So that's who I am. I don't have much to bring to the world, but, as far as the noise level, you're in control. You can turn it down if it's a little too loud. So with my guitar, I don't annoy the neighbors too much. When I sing, they're not always too happy about that. So it's better than, perhaps making some crazy noise that annoyed people all around the neighborhood. But other than that, that's me. I write songs, and I hope to entertain people for a few minutes and take them out of a bad mood or give them energy. I get a lot of positive energy out of music. You have great music and you're trying to exercise. I'm not a big fan of exercising. I don't spend that much time on the exercise machine. But when I do, and I'm like, I got to exercise. My doctor says I got to exercise. So, and if I get like great music, the time seems to go a lot faster. Obviously, it's the same 20 minutes. So music can have a great impact on your life and, put you in great moods or be there supporting you. And that's what I try to do. I try to write songs that are useful in a way, because let's face it, you're not going to be able to, shovel snow with it. Or you can listen to music while you shovel snow, and that may actually make the time go faster. But, a shovel is way more practical than a song to get rid of the snow in front of your door. So that's what I do. And I hope that to pass on that kind of positive energy that I get myself from other musicians who write incredible songs that have, helped me throughout my my life in different times. I put them on and I go like, wow, this is great. It makes me feel good. And I just hope I can do that for others as well.
Well, as they say, music is something that brings people together, period, right? So, having something, that continues to make you happy, we all get in our certain moods and usually music is a go-to. Yeah. So if you're bringing that warmth and that energy that you desire to bring to people, that's all that counts, and that's what's the most important. But tell me, how many years have you actually been playing?
Wow, that is going to be, I don't have enough fingers on both hands. It's going to be, I'd say I've been playing since I was, I would say about 30 years. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't start writing right away, though.
Mm-hmm.
That took a while before I got into it. I started playing guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started singing. And then eventually I got to writing because I thought, wow, this is great. But, how do these people put it together? Like great writers out there from all around the world, and it's just great music. And so, but that took me about like into my early 20s before I started,
mm-hmm.
seriously write and try to put songs together,
mm-hmm.
which is a format that I like best out of, I enjoy so many great music, instrumental music as well. But I thought that's the kind of cool format, it's 3 minutes or a little less or a little more these days.
Right.
Some songs are a little shorter. They're back to the short 2.5 minutes that you could find in the 60s, right?
Mm-hmm.
So which is good. But I started. I was about 15 years old playing guitar,
mm-hmm.
and so it's been quite a lot of fun and certainly interesting process.
Right.
Always challenging for sure.
Right. So, are you the only one in the family that has been interested in music, or is your, family musical family per se?
Yeah. And I can hear my mom from heaven saying, thank God. Yes, it wasn't anything that was part of the family,
mm-hmm.
set of skills or passed on from. Apparently, I might have had a great-grandfather who played the violin somewhere at, weddings or whatnot, but not a professional player.
Mm-hmm.
But that's history that was never documented. It was just passed on like this. So no one else in the family has made the mistake of going down that silly path.
The mistake that's been a big part of your life, right? Right.
Yeah. That weird son of ours. What was he thinking? That's I'm the only one annoying the neighbors. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. So talk about the journey a little bit about being a musician. I think a lot of times, people today, obviously we know with the technology that we have today and everything being virtual, people can move up much quicker into becoming that overnight success, that overnight pop star. But the key is longevity. So talk to the listeners about the journey you have and what does it take to have that longevity in order to stay in this type of industry?
Wow, that's a great question. And I think you really said it very clearly. You definitely can get exposure immediately and have it spread out via all these social networks. Can you get people's attention for what you do, musically or otherwise, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you sustain that, right? So it is very, very difficult. And actually, I can only speak for myself. I don't have that. I mean, I know plenty of musicians and I've had that conversation. It's like you cannot stop. Right. Mm-hmm. And as I was saying earlier, it's like sometimes you just wish this thing would go away. But unfortunately, you can't stop. It's
mm-hmm.
like if I were to pick up the guitar one day
mm-hmm.
and, play around and nothing comes out, nothing at all for like hours. It could be like an entire 24 hours straight going to, and just nothing, just not inspired at all, I would be like, okay, all right, so nothing's coming. But it's not the case. Mm-hmm. And it pursues you. It nags you. You know, you just like play around. You go, oh wow, that sounds kind of nice. What's that? How did I do that? Mm-hmm. And it keeps nagging. It keeps coming back, and you put the guitar away, and you know, I can't do this anymore. I have to move on with my life. This is not, you know. But no, it's like it circles in your head, and same thing with lyrics. You know, you're like, you find yourself in the middle of the night, in my case, and I'm like, I wake up and I'm thinking, oh, well, gee, what am I doing up at 3 a.m? And then like these lines, you know. So nowadays I text myself, you know, I would wake up in the past and turn on the light and write on the no more. But it just doesn't want to go away. And I think that whether or not the public, your audience, stays with you and you know, want to hear more from you or certainly appreciate what you have to offer, that's a different story, obviously, because you never know how the public reacts to anything, the public at large, right? You can't speak for masses. But personally, as the musician, it's just, I can't stop it. It's like a leaky, you know, faucet, if you will. Right. It just will not stop. So I keep doing it. And then, you know, the moment it's finished, if you will, then I got to hear this with the band. So you call up your friends and you're like, hey, you guys can spare a few hours. We can go into the studio and record this thing that I wrote. And it seems everybody is like that, right? The people in the musicians, I know that. Yeah, sure. You know, because, you know, one day I get a call from them and say, hey, yeah, like a couple of hours, play some guitar for me. So then and it keeps on going, and then it's done and it's ready, and you're listening to it and you go like, well, gee, that doesn't sound half bad. You know, I'll put it on the internet.
Right. Now, you can just throw it out there. Exactly.
Right. So, and now that takes no time at all. I mean, when you have to, like, you know, press a record and try to find a distributor and all these things. But nowadays, you know, it's like, gee, how fast is your internet connection? That's how fast you can upload this thing. So, and if you have $30, you can have it out there on Spotify, everything else for a year. So, I mean, it's great in many respects, and obviously, it's very competitive. It's always been extremely competitive. Right. But that aside, right? You know, it's just that I can't stop it. And of course, the technology helps passing it on, which is wonderful.
Right. Well, you know, as they say, if you eat, sleep, breathe, and think about music all day long, then you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, right?
Right. Exactly. It's exactly right.
Yeah, that's the key. But, you know, like I said, the journey for you obviously has been very unique and different because you came in 30 years ago where things are not the same as they are today. So talk about the business side. But so I think that no matter whether it was 30 years ago then versus it is today, the business portion is still very important. And I think a lot of times a lot of the artists lose that respect of understanding how important it is and how deep you want to get into the business side of the music. So it's not just about writing the lyrics and just singing. There's all these other things that come with that. What would you like to share with the listeners about the business side of being in music?
I think that's an amazing question because in many respects, with all of the advantages that technology has brought to us and the making music available to anybody throughout the world at any time, really, that's wonderful. But getting people's attention for that music is just as difficult that it was without the possibility of just uploading music and there it is available for anybody to listen to. You always had to look. There are only 24 hours in a day, right? And you wanted music to be heard. Most of the time, your best bet was to get that music on a radio station that had significant amount of listeners. But if they played it once during the day and, you know, depending on how big the station's reach is, you still had to compete for that because there were always people lining up around the block with their album under their arms waiting to play that stuff to the local DJ at the radio station.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only 24 hours in the day. Only so many songs can be played. Divide 24 hours by 4 minutes, and that gives you the number of songs. And that's it. So, it's not like there were shortages of songs. So,
Mm-hmm.
of course, people try to get the best time, try to get played more than once a day, maybe like every hour if you could, or
Mm-hmm.
every 2 or 3 times. But nowadays, you might be able to be on YouTube and Spotify and Deezer and you name it. I mean,
Right.
we don't have to go through the list. But the problem is that people are, it's just still, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of options.
Mm-hmm.
So, to get that exposure, and you need it, right? You need people to know that your music exists. Otherwise, they're not going to wake up one day and go like, gee, wonder, maybe there's a guy named Elle with a couple of songs that I should listen to.
Right.
No, it's never going to happen, right? So until you get exposed to as many, many people as possible, and that challenge is still the same. And at the end, of all that, the challenge rests on money.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have enough money to promote the fact that you exist and that your music exists, very, very few people are going to know unless you have these instances, and I think that's what all of us hope for at some point, where your work goes viral, and that's always been the case. It used to be called word of mouth. Well,
Mm-hmm.
people would say, wow, I just heard this thing, and they tell their friends, they tell their families, and say, yeah, you got to check this out. You got to check this out. And that's what we hope for. We hope that, a handful of people get to hear what we do and they pass it on and they say, hey, check this out. And
Mm-hmm.
it's extremely, extremely competitive.
Right.
Otherwise, you hope that you can get enough people to talk about it because you have a little bit of money and that you can get, publicity for it, advertising,
Mm-hmm.
and find a place where, people are going to eventually hear your work. But, in that respect, the challenge is always the same, always been the same. And it's the same for all businesses.
Right.
It's not
Mm-hmm.
just to music. I mean, if you want an audience that is customers, they have to know you exist, right?
Exactly.
It's visibility and the awareness
Mm-hmm.
of your existence, your product, and that has not changed at all. So that's life, right?
Yeah.
If you want to meet the love of your life, right? Your soulmate, you've got to meet people. People have to know that you exist, and eventually you meet someone that you fall in love with, and vice versa.
Right.
But that starts with meeting people. To the fabulous sound of great music that was playing that day at the club or wherever you were, or in the elevator, wherever you met your soulmate,
right.
and you're like, wow, hey, isn't that great? That sounds great. Who's playing during the elevator? Right?
Mm-hmm.
You start a conversation, and before you know it, you're in love. So, life is that, right? Awareness of existence and hopefully, good things happen as well as better things for everybody.
Right. But I guess too, at the end of the day, still, even though we have the technology today and, you still have the huge marketing opportunities, I still think always word of mouth is always the best, because you just never know who you're talking to and how that conversation can turn into something much bigger than you could have ever, thought about at that moment. And even though we know technology gives you a further reach, because there's obviously people you will never be able to talk to because you're globally now. You can do these things and people can listen to your music all over the world at a much quicker and faster pace, as far as when it comes to business. And that, like I said, it doesn't matter what business you're in, marketing and putting yourself out there is going to be the main thing that you do in order to be a successful singer, songwriter, entrepreneur, because being in business, whether you're in music, you are still considered an entrepreneur, a business person. So talk about with the listeners a little bit more about the understanding of the entrepreneurship side. So when you're in business, how important is it to own your music versus having to use somebody else's music? How does that make a difference in your life as far as being a success in the business, besides just being a great singer?
Well, that's a great point, and you really said it very clearly, and I can only echo what you said. And as far as the ownership, it's extremely important, because really the value of what a song brings to the table is in the publishing rights, as we call it. And that means your ownership of the music and the lyrics and the package put together, the recording of it. So someone else can be recording your music after you write it, right? And hopefully you will have some songs that are recorded by a major artist who already has a large audience, and then can, bring your music to the ears of a new and large audience. But you own the lyrics, you own the melody and the chords and the music, and therefore, that's where you get royalties from the publishing rights for these items. And as far as your own recording of the music, if you record it yourself, you also own the rights for this music to be played. So when it's played on the radio, when it's played on Spotify, when it's played in an elevator, when it's played in a restaurant, or on TV, right? If you're lucky and you can play a song on TV on a show or in a movie, you also get paid for that. And so owning your own music is extremely important. Writing your own music is extremely important if you can do it. And of course, there are people who can do everything from A to Z, right? But also there are folks who specialize and are very talented in some aspects, just writing or just singing. And there's great opportunities in all of those places. But certainly if you can write as an entrepreneur, the product is the writing, and what you create there has value. And once it's created and put together, it continues to exist and has value for the business forever.
Okay.
Right. So the great person who managed to put together, White Christmas, I forgot the name of the writer. I apologize. To the estate of that. Every year at Christmas, it's collecting money from that song, and of course all the great Christmas songs. And Christmas is not going to go away, as far as I can tell. We may not have snow one day on the planet. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the weather myself, but there could be all sorts of things happening, but Christmas doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon. So every year, if you have a great Christmas song that becomes a classic, you don't have to work, if you will. I mean, it's not easy to have that kind of song, right? And generate that kind of playing. But certainly the amazing classic music and songs that we hear fairly often, certainly every year around that time, but also, that come back in movies and TV shows and sort of about part of the national and international culture. That's really where the most money is made, is owning that and having the rights to that music. And it's extremely important as a business to have that ownership.
Right. Yeah. That's what I was saying. I definitely, figured there's absolutely a difference. And I think that a lot of people need to understand that, because like I said, it's one thing to sing by somebody else's song. Obviously you'll still get something from that, but being able to be in control of your environment and the things that you want in order to be more of a successful singer, it's like nothing wrong with being a great singer. We would love to hear your voice, but really at the end of the day, it's what are you getting out of that in return of your investment? You are the investment. You're putting the music out there. So, being able to have the opportunity to see it in return, that's most important. So, thank you for that information. I think that's important that people understand, that being in business is such a much bigger picture. And a lot of times when, they see people who are already successful, they really don't understand what they went through to get there. And I think having these little types of conversations and little bits and pieces really gets people to open up their mindset a little bit more. And obviously we know the generations today are definitely, you know, out there making their money, and they understand that. But like we said earlier, it's all about longevity. You know, what else are you bringing to the table? Yeah. You know, how are you keeping yourself out there? And then once you're doing that, what are you doing to keep the money rolling in besides just that being that one hit wonder, so to speak? So
right, exactly.
So I want to ask you about your song that we're going to get the opportunity to listen to. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Miss Mess? What is that song about?
Yeah, well, great. Thank you for that, and I really appreciate you taking the time to play it at the end of the show. I, like many people, as far as I know, spent quite a bit of time during the lockdowns and the pandemic on social networks and binging on television, but certainly on TikTok. And TikTok's got this wonderful, wonderful stuff. I mean, I am kind of like a introvert, and I stay home a lot, right? I'm not exactly like go out and do things. And I was like being presented like these great short videos of women flying helicopters, gymnasts. I mean, like doing the most intense stuff. I mean, you know, yeah, I've watched the Olympics, and there's like some intense, but there are people out there who are a little wild, I have to say. But great scenes in nature and with animals. You know, I love puppies, and for some reason, I guess the system, the algorithm figured me out. But I was like watching these and great scenes in natures and hiking and these, you know, ladies and guys too, but certainly and just doing these things that were like nutty, and it inspired Miss Mess because of some of them were really getting themselves in a crazy mess. I mean, but I've seen like there was army helicopter, you know, and pilots, and it was like it's so intense. Because I'm not aware of it, right? If I have time to watch television, I'm going to go with, you know, the murder mystery. You know, that's kind of my go-to. So with TikTok, it was like, wow, look at this. And it's not very long, 15 seconds to 30 seconds, perhaps a little longer sometimes. But so many, and you find yourself like, I find myself like spending so much time. And it inspired this song because it just had this element of messiness, and yet at the same time being totally in control. Like these folks were totally in control of what they were doing. Obviously, I mean, sometimes, you know, for fun, they ended up, you know, doing these wild, crazy things. But you know, it was really entertaining, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And I came up with this kind of, you know, tongue-in-cheek, you know, little song that I thought, yeah, well, I sort of capture my experience from a distance, you know. Someone who is controlling your life by having you totally focused on what she is doing, right? And doing it with such ease, and in her little black dress, like, you know, that easy sort of wear that, you know, every woman has a little black dress, as far as I'm told, or I know them all, of course. But, and, you know, Miss Mess in her little black dress, and she's totally like taking control of your life. And simply because all I do is thumb through, you know, and she's, you know, it's not like they were wearing black dresses in all these videos, but that kind of feeling that you've got this person who's got you all wrapped up and completely focused on what she's doing.
Wow. Well, I'm excited that we're going to get the opportunity to play that song for everybody this evening, and I'll be doing that here in just a couple of minutes. But before we end tonight, why don't you tell the listeners how they can listen to your music, where they can find you, if you have any social media links you'd like to share, and then also let us know if you have anything live going on within the next few months.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your time. My name is Elle. It's JAYELLE. My website is jlsongs.com, and all the information is there as far as what comes up live or certainly new recordings. And I am on all the platforms you can think of and ever imagine as they come up,
Exactly.
including, of course, iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon, and all of them, and quite a few stations. We reach about 100 stations, so it's in the U.S. So that's great, and of course, great shows like yours. Thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It is my pleasure. And again, I thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to spend some time with me this evening and talk about your journey and who you are. I've really enjoyed this conversation this evening.
You're welcome.
You're very welcome. Thank you. And again, and so forth. So, alrighty. So like I said, everybody, we had just had a great conversation with music artist Elle, and I'm going to be playing his single this evening. But before we do that, it always leads me to think about, what are you thinking about? What are your goals? What are your dreams? What are you trying to accomplish? We are already in 2022 and it's running strong. And if you hadn't figured it out yet, it's time for you to step up out of fear. It's time for you to move forward. If you want to have a conversation with me, you can reach out to me anytime. You can email me at Kimberly, WSBILLC@gmail.com. And let's just talk about those dreams. Let's talk about those goals, because we want to turn them into something positive, right? But of course, too, if you want to hear more of your resource for success, we do now take monetary donations to support the podcast, and you can send them through Cash App, PayPal, or you can go directly through www.WSBILLC.com, which is the website. But as well, again, like I said, I thank you all for listening to us tonight. We will be back next week with more amazing guests. Be sure to follow us on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts. But until then, you enjoy the rest of your evening, and good night.
Misunderstood. Miss, I never think whether I should. Bad for my manhood. Swaying like a riptide on the loose. You feel you've got your heart caught in a noose. Hoping that you've gone down and fly some kind of flag of truce. She's ever so flawless in her little black dress. She's ever so reckless in her little black dress. Miss Mess. Miss, I've got it all. Miss, I'm never gonna take the fall. Always gonna walk. Always got you chasing your own tail. And yes, you love a bird, it's all no avail. Don't ever tell her that, but you've met your whale. She's ever so flawless in her little black dress. Miss Mess. She's ever so reckless in her little black dress. Miss Mess. Miss, I told you so. Miss, there's quite a lot that you don't know. She's running the game show, hanging like a raindrop on a thorn. You feel like you are